And welcome back into 365 Sports. Time for our weekly look in at the latest Big 12 Mojo Rankings. Week 6 is where we find ourselves. Do y'all realize that we're in week 6 already?
We're in October. It has to be, yeah.
Week 6, we're nearly at the halfway point of college football. As long as it takes to get here, it just flies by. But for those just joining us, the Mojo Rankings are just my personal twist on power rankings. They're basically power rankings, but just kind of the separation comes in some of the details of the mojo, the momentum you're riding, the momentum your program has on and off the field. Those factor in and ultimately create some of the separation. But for all intents and purposes, it's a power ranking with the twist. So let's get into where we find ourselves in the Big 12 Conference. And as always, we will start off with the bottom 4, 16 through 13. And no movement at 16 and 15, fellas. I don't know how much movement there will be moving forward here, but Oklahoma State, despite a valiant effort against Baylor, I can't move you up after you fired your head coach in week 5 of the season. Yeah. And I can't move you up after a loss, as valiant of an effort as it may have been. I do think that with West Virginia, there's a chance they could try and fight over 16. But for right now, from a power standpoint and just all that's going on standpoint, even though it feels like Oklahoma State's turning a positive corner, they are very much the team at the bottom of these rankings at the moment. West Virginia at 15, staying where they are. The loss last week, you got Nico Marchiol that's now redshirting, just a bad fit, trying to preserve some of his career. And I think what I saw this week from West Virginia fans, shout out to Justin Walker, for example. Check out WV Sports Chat, all the great work that he does. But there was maybe this glimmer of, this isn't going to be like a full-on tear it down and build it back up. Or, hey, we beat Pitt. Like, we could win some games this year. And then I think over the last couple of weeks, it's become clear, like, no, this is a rebuild. This is absolutely a rebuild. This is a throwaway year where the end record doesn't matter all that much. It's about what's kind of being put in place right now. So the good stuff, kind of like with Oklahoma State, you'll love it, but it's not, an end-all, be-all type of a season. So they're at 15 following their loss to Utah, which was Utah just being the buzzsaw that it is and getting back to business.
Yeah. With West Virginia, okay, when they beat Pitt, well, I watched a little bit of Pitt in Louisville last week, and Pitt was in firm control of that game. Much like they could have been against West Virginia, they had some early momentum, and then they made one mistake and the wheels kind of fell off and they lost all their momentum and they never got it back. So, and I know West Virginia fans aren't going to be sad that Pitt is chaotic, but Pitt's chaotic. And
oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a credit to Rich Rod and that team for seizing on the opportunity when Pitt got chaotic against them, even though Pitt is probably, 1 through 105 on that roster better. They're chaotic, and that's what happened. Rich Rod was like, all right, we're going to, let's turn into the skid, baby, and go,
Yeah, well, for West Virginia, now what awaits them as they fall to 2-3 and 0-2 in Big 12 play is a Friday night game in Provo. So I don't know that's going to get any better this coming weekend. That's always quite the challenge, heading out to Provo, playing a late-night game on a Friday. That just is going to be a really tough matchup for them. Jumping down a couple spots, got the Colorado Buffaloes falling this past weekend to BYU, and I thought they played hard. They jumped out early on Colorado, got the 2-score lead, but just couldn't hang on to it, couldn't muster enough offensively, couldn't tackle on defense. Now, BYU deserves some credit. Their players just being good players and making plays, but there was just a lot I did not like watching Colorado, and I don't think the quarterback situation is going to be fixed this season with the personnel they have. That's clear that Caden Salter's not going to have learned these massive lessons and suddenly turn into what he was at Liberty a couple years ago. He's a guy who's a talented player, but he's playing a bunch of way more talented teams than he'd played at any other point in his career on a weekly basis now, and just very unsure of himself, bad decision-making. There were some things to like from Colorado, but by the end of it, what was upset bid at home was just this team's just not very good. And I don't think there's a lot that's going to change that. So I dropped them a couple of spots. UCF also dropping a couple spots after the loss to Kansas State. They've got some injury issues at quarterback. I don't think really much separating these two teams other than I had UCF above Colorado last week, and I'm just keeping them there because not much separates them, to be perfectly honest.
They had such a hard week.
Yeah.
The coach passing away and then going on the road and all that. I bet they're just glad the week is over, see how they respond. But, I think they both definitely deserve a drop. And Colorado, 14-3? And then I kind of was trying to fight whether I was going to fall asleep or not, and I didn't. And then you just saw, obviously, the twist of they just start BYU. I'm not BYU, excuse me. They're just coming back to win that game. What a nice win.
Yeah, it was a really good win for BYU. They just kept their cool and calm and just kept doing their thing, and eventually they broke through and were able to grab that lead. And Colorado just a really good start, but not much else after that to keep them from losing that lead. So, the Buffaloes in a bad way right now. On to the next grouping, and we go 12 through 9. Kansas State, who was residing towards the bottom for the first few weeks, they got to win 34-20 over UCF, so got to propel them upward a little bit. And I do feel like there is this sense, at least, of optimism this week of, hey, you can go down, you can beat Baylor. You could definitely go beat Baylor in Waco. That's not an impossibility by any stretch. But how much of this would be due to Avery Johnson using his legs more? Yeah. How much of it is just simply having Dylan Edwards back? So when I talk Mojo and power rankings, for example, if I'm debating between Kansas State and Colorado, Dylan Edwards coming back, that's going to boost you up a little bit higher, right? If we're just splitting hairs, that's a factor in your favor. He comes back, and immediately the run game is just monumentally better than what we had seen prior to that. So having a healthy Dylan Edwards is obviously big for Kansas State. Getting a win, just kind of feeling like you're getting on back on track a little bit is good for their mojo as well. So they jump up a couple of spots. Arizona drops down a couple, not only got beat by Iowa State, but got beat badly by Iowa State. 25-point loss. I think it was a kind of a grounding loss of where you've been off to a nice start, but maybe it's a little bit not quite what it seems until you run into some teams that are what they are. And then I think you see there's a difference between an Arizona and an Iowa State, even though that game was obviously played in Ames, and that didn't work in your favor. But there's just a clear difference between those two programs. So you lose by 25 points, you're going to drop a little bit. Baylor up a couple spots from number 11. I may have had them too low last week, but you were 500. You go beat Oklahoma State. I'm not going to give you a ton of credit for that, but I do think you were walking into a snake pit with the coach change and the different curveballs thrown your way, because now they're like, well, we're just going to throw whatever out there and try to confuse you because you don't know what's coming. And they handled all that, even though the defense is not very good. Offensively, they were great. So Baylor jumps up a couple spots, not because of who they beat, but because of the circumstances. And then Kansas drops a couple after that loss to Cincinnati in a close game, had them at number 7 previously. But they, as you will see, get hopped by a couple teams. Could have won that game, maybe should have won that game. I don't think they're a bad team, but a loss is a loss. And now they've got to be very careful because they're already sitting at 3-2 and heading to Orlando this week. So KU coming up at number 9 there. Yeah,
Kansas, they are a team that could jump back up at any time, but I wonder if they have the gumption, to do that at any point and get their mojo pointed back in the right direction. I agree with you on Baylor. Like, they're up, like they won. They were supposed to. They dealt with it, but they really, really, really need to work on the defense. And with Dylan Edwards back and their ability to run the ball,
Avery Johnson,
Dylan Edwards.
That's not in the plan for him to run this weekend. Then the coaches need to be fired. Look, quite honestly,
Auburn's had one game where they felt like we're going to be Auburn again.
Yeah,
and it was here in Waco when Jackson Arnold did that. And guess who's better running than Jackson Arnold? I think Avery Johnson at his best. He's faster.
Yeah, he does. I think. Yeah, no, you're right. I always go back to that game when Baylor needed a win and they were kind of getting frisky and they got smoked. It's a different team. It's been years. I understand that. But I wonder, you wonder if a team that was supposed to be good that's been sleeping, slumbering, and not playing well, if all of a sudden just a simple win might help them get going.
In the case of Kansas State,
yeah,
you mean?
Yeah, the 2 up for Kansas State and KU down. I think Baylor's better than 10, but not with the Mojo rankings. They have to prove that.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3-2 now, and I don't know who you would have above them. I guess you could say you'd have them above Houston, but I'm not going to put them over a team that's 4-0 right now. Yeah. I mean, so again, if this is pure power rankings, then yeah, Baylor's probably 7 or something like that, but your record is who you are. So let's get into the top 8 here. And there's Houston. They stay pat after the close win at Oregon State in overtime. They moved to 4-0. Now they got to go play Texas Tech, and I don't really like that matchup for them, but didn't move them up or down. They won a close game in a tough environment on a weeknight out in the Pacific Northwest. And so after getting down early and really looking like they were going to have a disastrous loss, they stay pat. But, yeah, I do think if we're matching them up, I think I'd take Baylor over Houston. I think I'd take Kansas over Houston, but Houston's 4-0, and so there's got to be some credit given for that. Cincinnati jumps up with the win over Kansas. I feel like Brendan Sorsby's playing some great football right now, and I know that that was their first Big 12 win, but I think that middle pack, there's just very little separation. And when you talk about riding some mojo, you go into Lawrence, Kansas, and you go beat a team that was technically rated better than you were, and you go win a close game, and your quarterback's throwing for a bazillion yards. They've got a lot of weapons around Brendan Sorsby. They did it without Dante Corleone, who's still kind of trying to work his way back. I just think there's a lot to like about them right now, and I think they've got some good mojo going on. So I got Cincinnati jumping up to 7. 6, TCU dropping a couple of spots after the loss to Arizona State. No shame in that, but it's not just about you. It's about what others did as well. So they drop a couple due to the loss to the Sun Devils, and they're just so one-dimensional, man. It's Josh Hoover throwing the ball or bust, and that's it. There's no run game.
I was really that game kind of not took me aback, but I never thought that I just always thought that TCU was going to outscore Arizona State.
No, I mean, they've got good receivers, but you lose an Eric McAllister, and I mean, suddenly you're really searching for answers. And again, no run game to speak of, an offensive line that's not very good, and a defense that's okay, but it's not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. So, I think that was a tough loss, but TCU's still a very good team, and Utah up 1. They just buzzsawed West Virginia. Got dinged for losing to Tech in the fashion they did, but I think Tech might just be a lot better than most teams in this league, and I think that's maybe something that we acknowledge sooner rather than later. But Utah jumping back up a spot to number 5.
Yeah, I'm scared of Cincinnati if I'm a lot of the rest of the league, because
I would be if they win this weekend.
Yeah. This weekend.
I know you got to be leery of them, but they follow up what they did on the Yeah.
You talk about mojo, though. They're favorites in this game. They're favorites in this game.
Yeah, and Sorsby's he's gotten better every year. And look, last year they're in a bowl game if Sorsby's healthy for one more game. Mm-hmm. They're probably in the bowl game. So this is a team that knows that. Sorsby's playing really, really well. Everybody around him is playing well. They have a really good offensive line. So yeah, they scare me. I mean, like right now, I'm not terrified of them until they beat Iowa State. But if they beat Iowa State, it's on, brother. They're the team, and that wry smile that we saw.
That's Scott Satterfield.
That's making more sense by the second.
Yep. Very confident back in July. Yep.
I can't believe that TCU can't find a running back.
Their offensive line's not very good. That's true. The problem.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, they can't, and they don't have depth. I'm surprised with that too, because that's one of the staples of not only the Bryles offense, but Sonny Dykes has always, had decent offensive lines.
Well, because it's that thing where they spread you out, they throw it around, and then they gut you with bodies, big bodies on the offensive line. Yeah,
but if you look back to what was supposed to be Bryles last year, they were set up to where they were not going to have a good offensive line. Like, they had a good run, but everything ebbs and flows. And I think TCU now has gone a couple years where they haven't been nearly as good as you'd expect them to be. So for the reason of them being kind of one-dimensional is why I ding them maybe an extra spot for that. But Utah at number 5, they got back to business. And again, maybe Tech's just that good. And it's not an indictment on Utah to get blown out at home by the Red Raiders. It's just Tech's that good. We'll see.
Kim, I'll be in touch for more advertising. Stay tuned.
I mean, we will see. We will find out. But Utah with a bye this week. So let's get into the top 4. And Arizona State also with the bye this week. They jump up to number 4 after the win over TCU. It's a ranked win for the Sun Devils. 2-0 start to Big 12 play after beating Baylor the week prior. Some clutch wins here to start the conference, and just kind of a team that feels like they're going to win those close games this year. And when you have a team that kind of has that, that's the difference in maybe winning the league or not making a bowl game. And so Arizona State, at least as of the last couple of weeks, certainly seems like a team that's got that cardiac ability to where they know how to close games out. So I was very impressed by them beating TCU. Thought that was a really, really nice win for Kenny Dillingham and company. And Sam Levitt's very, very good. Jordan Tyson's incredible. Their defense, though, is really good as well. Their run game's solid. Like, if you're talking about the most complete teams, Arizona State is definitely in the conversation along with Texas Tech and Iowa State, whoever else you want to throw in there. I like them a lot. And then the top 3 remains unchanged. I mean, BYU handled their business against Colorado. Did have a little bit of a scare initially, but kept cool, calm, and composed. And Bachmeier, steady Eddie, didn't have to do a whole lot of really crazy stuff, but was efficient. Showed off his running ability, didn't turn the ball over. He just guided that offense the way you would want him to, and especially in a road environment with a bunch of crazies on a Friday night, or a Saturday night. Or was that Friday or Saturday, Colorado game? That was Saturday, right? I think it was Saturday. But
Colorado?
The late Saturday.
Late
I'm confused.
Saturday. 9:30, whatever.
Houston and then Arizona State TCU they were on Friday night. So, that was a late Saturday game. But just very impressed with young Bachmeier there. They've got some good weapons. Defense is great. And so a game that some teams might have lost and would have been just a bad kind of loss to take on the road. BYU still finds a way to stay unbeaten. Meanwhile, Iowa State crushes Arizona, had no problem dispatching the Wildcats. Rocco Beck's a lot of fun. Don't think he's getting nearly enough credit when we have the Big 12 quarterback conversations. And they'll have this challenge against Cincinnati. You should have mentioned, Tyson Veit, who was there with Iowa State, was hired from Iowa State to go coach that Cincinnati defense and basically install the Iowa State defense, 3-3-5 that everybody copied and pasted basically over the last decade in the Big 12. You think that'll come into play as well, a little personal thing there with the Cyclones and Bearcats with that matchup. And then Texas Tech didn't play last week, but it would have taken something monumental to knock them off their perch, which they took over a couple of weeks ago. They are the number 1 team. They're at Houston this weekend. So the top 2 on the road, we'll see if that matters at all. BYU hosting West Virginia on a Friday night. TCU's hosting Colorado. And then Arizona State and Utah both have byes. So we'll see how much the top of the list gets shook up, if at all, this weekend. I think the big threat is obviously Cincinnati, Iowa State. But beyond that, I anticipate everybody else taking care of their business. But we'll see. There are the Big 12 Mojo /Power Rankings here in week number 6.